I recently played that deck that played every single evolution inside of it, but I really wanted to make this deck feel a bit more streamlined and a lot more competitive. I really love Flareon, so that was the basis of my deck here. Where I started Flareon, I was looking for things that I would actually want to charge up in every match. And I decided that the only two things worth keeping were the Sylveon and the Leafeon. Now obviously, the Flareon will probably be the best card in your deck for simply allowing you to actually attack with everything else. Its attack does 130 damage and rams 2 energies from the deck onto one of your Pokemon. So this could go on to an Eevee in the back, and even go on to Radiant Greninja. I will say, the reason why I chose these other two evolutions specifically is that I feel like they best work with Flareon's game plan. Leafeon has a high damaging attack that can be very consistently done, and it heals your backline, which helps you in matchups such as Regidrago or Dragapult, where they are spreading damage. And Sylveon's Angelite is extremely strong when paired with offensive pressure, especially if you're able to knock out one of your opponent's main attackers and then Angelite away the other two, removing all forms of setup that your opponent has available to them. I think this deck is really strong, and I think this is pretty close to the finalized version I would play. I think Jolteon is up for consideration, but I really don't think Jolteon is all that impressive, and it doesn't play to the types of strengths that Flareon enables you to have. I hope you guys enjoy the games. Alrighty, again, start with this first match here. This is actually like one of the more exciting games I played. I was talking about it with friends, like, oh shit, that's why I know I'm cooking. I don't know if there's a couple of games in this deck where I'm playing the older list. I was trying a few ideas, so one of these games might be a little bit outdated. I know for sure that one of the cards that I like just put in is like in this deck, or is in this match. So if you see like it missing the other match, that's why. Anyways, I go ahead and Earthen Vessel, and this gives me a good check my energy. I really should be checking the Pokemon I have access to as well, but it's fine. I noticed I don't have the Grass Energy, but I still have the Sylveon up, and I do have access to Leafeon still. It just requires me to hit the Luminous Energy or the Tera Crystal. That's what's kind of nice about having both of those as an option, in that if you're missing one energy, each of those can always patch it up. Here, I'm going first against my opponent, and I don't get to do much here besides go for the Squawkabilly, but that's fine. And I also go ahead and dump some energies in there, mostly for trumpet usage, because I kind of know that, hey, I might want all these guys into play here. Not for like any super particular reason, but I think like the Leafeon can maybe be good if my opponent decides to put a bunch of energies down, and that would then allow me to kill the Gardevoir if I chose to boss it up. Here, there's not a whole lot going on, unfortunately, because my opponent does end up using Budew to Iron Block me, so I'm hoping to just draw into an energy or wait for my opponent to pass on that Iron Block, which isn't that great, but also my opponent only has one Ralts up, which is pretty good for me. And they've already chosen to dedicate some of their other deck slots to the Budew, the Drifloon, and the Greninja, so this is like a decent situation for me. My opponent is also going to go ahead at Arven and start grabbing a bunch of stuff in their deck. I kind of want them to TM Evo here and ruin the Item Block, which it seems like, is an angle that they're going to go for. And this will allow me to have access to, all my stuff again. So, one thing I'm looking to do is to showcase Sylveon's Angelite in this game, mostly because, like, hey, my opponent is running out of things to do here. Yeah, essentially it. I also go ahead and like, oh, I'm going to attach a Silver Trumpet to the Leafeon. I'm like, oh, oops, messed up there. It's fine though. I'm also going to go ahead and just use the Night Stretcher to attach the energy to the Flareon. That way I can guarantee the attack. And I pass on playing the Iono because I know my opponent doesn't have a whole lot available to them currently. I'm also thinking about like, oh, what I want to do. And I decide, because the Sylveon is probably like really good in this current situation, I'd rather go ahead and get the Sylveon all charged up as opposed to charge up the Leafeon, which is the the other Eevee I have set up already. This is still fine because I have the Grass Energy in my hand, and I am not that far away from being able to attack with it regardless. Thankfully though, it seems like my opponent is still having kind of a slow burn here, so I'm hoping that we can just make it a little bit further and try to stabilize ourselves. The energy ramp is also like just so good for taking energies out of the deck and removing a lot of your draws. So between like the Tera Crystal and the Silver Trumpets, or the Glass Trumpets, and the Flareon charge, you aren't as energy starved as you think you are. in a deck that basically requires you to have like essentially 9 energies attached for most of your guys. I guess it's more like 8, because typically you don't reach the stage where you're using Carnelian on Flareon EX to attack, but you know, it's still there. And my opponent is going to go ahead and get the Gardevoir setup, and this is, you know, just a little sketchy. Just because it means that I don't have an extremely great comeback. I mean, even my Eevee on the bench isn't entirely ready to attack yet. So I'm not in like the most favorable position as my opponent goes ahead and takes 2 prizes here. And I'm going to go ahead and just throw the Squawkabilly up, because I'm almost always playing down this Latias. I could have considered playing down like the Greninja, though I think I checked my deck here just to make sure. Yeah, it's prize. My bad, my bad. So yeah, I want to get the Latias down. I think the Latias is a weird inclusion on first glance, but I really like the ability to flex around and switch. Sometimes your out is going to be using Glass Trumpet onto an Eevee, and then you have to promote the Eevee into the active to use the boosted evolution in order to then get yourself like a draw out. Anyways, I grabbed the Vengeful Punch here. I must have included this for Budew. I figured it is like, you know, Budew's a little hard to deal with sometimes. So I kind of figured that putting the Vengeful Punch in here would be good for that. But here, it's going to put my opponent into a very scary situation where they don't have a boss. They can't go ahead and boss around this, and then they're going to lose their attacker and trade with me. I said, you know, not like a super phenomenal position for me, regardless. But, I'd much rather do this and have a chance at the game, as my opponent is going to slowly set up another ult here. But as I say with the Latias, you have the Glass Trumpets, which sometimes need to attach to the bench, but you definitely want your Eevees in the active, so the ability to just freely move around helps so much. And we do play 2 copies at Area 0 to sometimes give us that extra bench space, so it's not like something I'm too worried about. And I finally get the Greninja off the prizes, as, you know, it's probably not going to come into play here, but it can get me a little bit extra draw. I'm going to go ahead and shove some energies back into the deck. I'm trying to think of like what I want to do here, and I just go ahead and grab one of each, just because I figured, oh, you know, that'd be good to charge up with the, what's the guy? I'd be good to charge up with the Flareon. I also go ahead and not Night Stretcher the energy back to my hand, which I think is a little bit weird. I think I should have like not done that. I think I definitely think I should have just Night Stretcher for energy, but it's fine, and we go relatively unpunished here. I also go ahead and just get rid of the last Eevee, because I'm basically never going to be needing another Eevee. I thought about chucking the Forest Seal Stone, but I was like, well, if I get Area 0, then there's a chance. I also just use the Earthen Vessel to just check my deck and see if there's anything cool. Unfortunately, there's not a whole lot going on, so I'm just going to go ahead and get some stuff onto the Leafeon here. And this is just in case my opponent ends up playing like Ifaz or Lumineon or something, and I need the extra damage to knock it out. I'd much rather have like another Sylveon charged up, but you know, beggars can't be choosers. I've kind of already used my, what's it called? I lose my mind here. Why can't I not remember the name of the guy? Oh, I've kind of already used my Sylveon and all the gas, so you know, it's going to be really hard to charge one back up. But, you know, regardless, I'm still just going to go ahead and get everything set up here. I believe I'm just going to start attacking with the... No, I'm still going to attack with the Flareon. I think the reason is I want to take the extra energy of the deck. It's not really doing anything at this point, and so I'd rather just yank it out and improve my draws just slightly more. As I said, I could have possibly attached to the Greninja here, and I think that would have been a slightly better play, even though I don't think there's a really good chance for me to like pop off with the Greninja. I'd have to manually start attaching like Night Stretcher energies onto it. And maybe if I had like the Foresight, I could have possibly won the game with it a bit earlier, but if my opponent realized that, they could just artisan it out with the artisan the Manifold. Sorry, I'm having a hard time here. Anyways, I go ahead and just boss up the Curly, because I know if I'm able to take away their draw, I'm able to take away their comeback into the game, and they just end up going and conceding. So that's a really strong point of like how Flareon's attack plus Angelite could just lead into me winning the game there, and putting me in a good position. Also, the Vengeful Punch just being kind of swag attack is definitely uplifting, I suppose. Here, I believe this is just a Gholdengo game, if I recall. And, you know, with Gholdengo's popularity kind of rising, it's really nice to be able to one-shot it while also charging 2 energies. It's kind of like Oh, well, it's minimal investment and it's not as cool because you're not able to do as many things as you wish you could, but I still think it's kind of swag. Anyways, yeah, my opponent reveals all the gimme goals here, and so I think my game plan is to try and take aggressive knockouts and then maybe push for an Angelite. I don't think Leafeon is going to do that great in this game scene, as they usually only have like 1 or 2 energy attached. And on top of that, my big attack also isn't going to one-shot anything extremely relevant besides maybe a Palkia. I'll also go ahead and just rip the Pokestop because I kind of figured, well, what's the worst that can happen? I am paying 2 Nest Balls, which is great because now I get to use all my Nest Balls on turn 1 and plan out the rest of my turn pretty efficiently. I go ahead and snag the Budew here, just in case, and I see that my Tera Eevee is prized, which sadly makes these Glass Trumpets kinda useless. I wish there was another way around it, but unfortunately, there's just like nothing I can do. I can definitely like swap input and Eevee into the active, but with Latias also prized, like that's just a lot of work, right? I'm just gonna go ahead and use the Earthen Vessel to trim down some stuff. I take out 2 fire energies because they're kind of the least useful. The fire is good on the Leafeon and of course the Flareon, and I go ahead and split my attachments. I don't think this is necessarily the right play because after thinking about it a little bit more, I think there's actually a semi-decent chance that I could maybe attack with the Flareon this turn, but you know, it's what it is. I go ahead and just swap into the Budew and take the item block. I think this is okay too, because if my opponent ends up getting enough energies to knock me out, then I'd be at a 2 prize deficit while I would have only taken 1 prize, and you know, it's kind of chill. I also hit into the Tera Orb this turn, and you know, my plan hopefully is to slow my opponent down just enough that I can't really recover back from this state, or you know, at least make it so I can attack with Flareon consistently, which shouldn't be that hard seeing as how he is going to auto-charge himself. As I was talking about earlier, like I could have attached the Terra Crystal onto the Eevee with the Fire Energy and been able to get my attack off this turn, which I think is a huge strength of the deck, is that you can very consistently hit the turn 2 attack, and that's something I didn't quite realize at this point of the game when I was playing. It was something that I had to work towards. I'll also go ahead and set up the Sylveon here, which I'm not entirely sure is the correct play. Mostly because I think I'm pretty reliant on Flareon for the most part. But I will say one thing that's extremely, still extremely nice about this deck is how quickly you are able to recover back from situations. Because the Eevee is able to evolve while in the active instantaneously, you're never in a situation that's like, well, now I can't play the game because because they knocked out all my attackers. So being able to just instantly charge up your attackers with the Glass Trumpet and go back in is so nice. Here I'm just going to go ahead and charge up my Sylveon. I suppose this isn't bad, because this could possibly put me into a situation where I can Angelite my opponent and make a comeback from there. The only issue is that I don't have an Area 0 in my hand currently, so it might be a little bit hard to get past this Pokestop, and if they manage to bench a third gimme goal here, which is the case, then it's kind of hard to be like, okay, well, Angelite feels really good. My opponent also goes ahead and gets rid of the rare candy, which kind of tells me that they're playing the Togekiss variant, which is good that I don't see it. Like, I'm so glad I hardly ever see the Togekiss actually come out. It seems like it's a hard commitment, and you either gotta go like balls to the wall to set it up, or you just gotta be strong about it. Right now, I'm still in a tough position. I don't have the best attacker up because I'm not able to knock out the Fez with my Sylveon. So I'd be looking to hopefully set up another a Flareon immediately. I'm still missing a few things, but I have a lot of draws available to me thanks to the Fez and the Greninja, so I'm not too worried. Other than that, my opponent also may not just have enough energies available, which is a shocking thing to say, but but all the evolutions having, around 300 is kind of nice, because they do dodge the threshold, so my opponent doesn't have 6 energies here, which, it seems like they are, because they're switching out, then I'm in a good spot, and I'm going to be able to roll away with this game, even more so than I thought. They switch out into the other Gholdengo here, which is something that shocked me. I was quite surprised, and yeah, it just seems like they don't have enough energies in their discard to knock me out here, which means I'm going to go ahead and just take another knockout by Flareon and progress my game plan just even further. Of course, I'm not just going to sit here and be idle. I'm going to go ahead and discard like a Grass Energy because, like I said, I do think it is the least useful here, as I probably won't be using Leafeon. I'm also tempted to click the Pokestop here, but the card I want the most is the, what's it called? The card I want the most is the Area 0 in order to bump their Stadium. I simply just can't fetch that off of my Pokestop here. So it's just like, okay, well, I'll just simply pass. I go ahead and ramp the energy, simply take it out of the deck, because once again, I don't think having that energy in the deck is going to be very helpful, and I'd rather just trim it, so I have an easier time getting back into like more relevant cards, as we're already near the bottom of both our decks, and this is only like, what, turn 4, turn 3? My opponent finally gets a knockout against me, which means that I have to find a way out, and also putting the energy onto the Lumineon is kind of swag, because it then allows me to retreat. I could have just done this with, what's it called, with Sylveon, but it's kind of nice to know that, like, oh, I definitely planned for this or whatever. And then using the boosted evolution, I'm just able to rock back out into Flareon and take my knockout here. Just a nice, clean, efficient game. Flareon, you know, I completely out-dominated my opponent. Until now, I haven't had a lot of games being able to show off Leafeon, and Leafeon is definitely like the least necessary. I think Leafeon is more of a tech than, you know, Flareon or even Sylveon to some degree, where Sylveon can become the main game plan depending on how the opponent's board state unfolds. Leafeon is contextually dependent. Outside of having a somewhat decent attack, you typically need Leafeon to be hitting for weakness, or to play it against a deck with a lot of energies on the field for the attack to, you know, work out. So this is a match that, you know, is finally like, oh, I get to do stuff with my Sylveon this game. Unfortunately, I'm still learning the deck by this point, and so I decided to go first, and I don't think that's the right call in general, because I think going second, you can just try to fish for the attack. That said, you know, there wasn't a whole lot going on here. Like, just between my EVs and my Fez, I don't have a whole lot to go off of. But I benched the Fez because if my opponent does like Prime Catcher it or boss it up and knock it out, I can just Night Stretcher it back. There's basically no reason for me not to prize it not to play it, because I have 4 Night Stretcher, which allows me to be like very, very trigger happy when playing down the cards I want to, because Night Stretcher can so easily get them back. That said, attaching this energy to my Eevee the active was maybe not the correct play. I was hoping that, like, okay, well, maybe I get into a situation where it's like I could still, you know, move forward with my game plan, but I ended up having to retreat and then use my Night Stretcher to get it back, which is thankfully like kind of the purpose of the card in the first place. But, you know, could be better. And now I'm like, you know, still struggling here. I'm trying to figure out like what the next game plan is. I go ahead and discard my Forest Healstone, because I'm thinking, okay, my bench is probably going to be too full for Lumineon at this point. And I also go ahead and hold. I don't put any energies down, and that's simply because I like don't want to aggressively promote the idea that I have to evolve or attack with one of these guys. So I'd rather just save all my resources so my Greninja has a better discard. It gives me more flexibility in how I want to approach this next turn. My opponent does put down like just enough prizes on the field for me to map out the rest of my game, which is very thankful. And the Stormy Moon is also going to just have a bunch of energies on it too, which is going to make attacking with this Leafeon very, very good. My opponent also like doesn't know exactly what's happening yet, because I haven't revealed much outside of like a slew of cards. So I'm thankful for that. I also believe my Grass Energy was prized this game, so I'm very thankful for the Tera Crystal to get me a little bit further. I look at the rest of my hand, I'm like, okay, what else do I need? There's not a whole lot available to me. I also go ahead and discard the Area 0, and the reason for this is that I don't want Running Moon to basically use my Stadium as their way of doing 220 damage. If that's the way that they kill the Fez, then that would kind of suck. I also have so many energies in my hand. It's really rough for me in this situation, because I really like don't want this amount of energies in my hand, and I'm also running out of like good, efficient ways to attack, to attack and charge up another Pokemon immediately. Thankfully, we still have some of the boosted evolutions in our deck. I'm like, okay, and my opponent doesn't even get enough to attack, so I'm like, oh god, sweet, we get to keep playing. I go ahead and discard a Water Energy from my hand. I'm not sure if that's like the correct play. I think maybe discarding a Fire Energy is a little bit better because I really don't need that many more Fire Energies in play now. He's attacking with the, well, I guess I'm not using Sylveon in this game, so I think probably discarding the Lightning Energy is a little bit better because I'd rather have the Fire Energies for both my Leafeon and for my Eevee. I'm a little sad to be doing this attack here. I'm basically not really getting any profit. All I'm doing is giving my opponent 3 more cards. But ultimately I decide that I'm pretty far ahead, that I could go ahead and take this risk. And even if it doesn't like pan out for me, the nice part about all of this is that he might be able to trigger my own Fez. And even if he doesn't, like, it's fine. I'll just be in a good position regardless. And that's why I'm like not afraid to take out the Greninja, just because it knocks out one of their draws, and it draws me a card. We kind of go net neutral, but because I'm already in the dominating position, I'm just like, okay. And my opponent has to go ahead and retreat, but they end up using Prime Catcher, so it's like, whatever, it's fine. My Leafeon still stays in play, which means it's just going to get to run over another Rumoon as he discards his own Pokestop. Really not a great position for him. He does take 2 prizes, which is kind of neat, but like I said, I'm just like in the much better pilot seat right now. I also go ahead and use the Nest Ball, just like check for some extra Pokemon, but I know I'm like weirdly low on Pokemon in the deck to summon. Just gonna go ahead and use Greninja to get a little bit more value, use the Fez to draw a little bit more cards, as I'm gonna try to set up for just another attacker. I believe like at this point I should be setting up for Carnelian on the Flareon. So I'm just gonna go ahead, get all my energies charge up, and then evolve it. That way, yeah, there's basically no way of losing. I think this final game is also against a Gholdengo, which I also just proceed to bully. I hope you guys enjoyed the game. I really will probably be playing way more of this deck, because this is by and far like one of the most interesting and cool decks that I've been able to play all format. You know, just with the way that you're able to toolbox your way out of a bunch of situations. I love using Angelite. Like, that's such a cool attack to have, like, be relevant and not just use as, like, a slow control tool. And so, there's even a chance I might even take this to an online tournament and see how far I can get with it. Because I do think there's, like, a lot of merit in this archetype that I don't think a lot of people are going to be able to piece together. Mostly because I think that people have different ideas for what a deck should be, or settle for a bare minimum. I guess, like, to elaborate on that thought, I've been seeing a lot of people play, like, Flareon Jolteon, which is fine. You know, it's okay. But Jolteon is kind of a whippy attacker. It'll only slam for 260 and has to get Rev Energies in play. So not only does it need upkeep, but it's also like only sprawled enough to contest with other things on the aggro level. But the thing is that like all those aggro decks should probably beat you out. And I also think it's like the first deck to like properly use Glass Trumpet to its full potential, which might I say is just like kind of a really swag card. Oh yeah, here's just like another situation of like me attacking Flareon on the first turn of the game, which is not something you'd see otherwise. Oh, this is the also this is the game where I don't have the Vengeful Punch. I think this had like 2 TM Turbo Energizes. I was trying to think of like ways of getting extra energies in play, but I found out that you can just consistently hit the turn 2 anyways, that you don't need TM Turbo Energize. You're better off playing a card like Switch, and then even a tech like Vengeful Punch that'll allow you to, you know, break through some of these Pokemon. But yeah, you know, I think Flareon's really sick. I think being able to use Angelite and have it not be like trash garbage is super swag too. And yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed these matches. I'll see you guys around. Peace.